Everybody to the June 11th meeting of the St. Charles County Council. We'll begin with an invocation from Brad Harris of the Bible Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Joe Brasso. You all rise.
Let's pray together, may we? Lord, help us to just pause and realize that we're a blessed people, and all our blessings come from you, and we're thankful to you for that. Well, we know you've established government, and you've allowed us to be a part of a community, and we just pray for our servant leadership, and we ask you to continue to bless our community in which we live. Lord, help us to be the best citizens we can be for the betterment of all the people around us. Help us to honor you in everything we do and say and how we go about our business throughout our everyday lives. Pray that you bless this very meeting and those involved in it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander. Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here. Okay, our next order of business, conditional use permit, bill number 4607. I need a motion to remove this from the table.
So moved.
And second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
These are the ones that are for introduction. The first ones are bills for introduction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, we'll begin with Bill 4607.
Right.
Yeah.
So sorry. Not prepared here, am I? Bill number 4607, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-05 for automobile sales to Mutual Assurance Company Partnership LLP property owners and Penul Raj Clement applicant. Robert, do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. This is an introduction.
Does anybody have any questions or comment on this conditional use permit? Or
I do have, I know, Robert, do you give a synopsis first, or do you want your speakers?
I can do it in whatever order that the chairman wishes.
why don't you give us, go ahead and give us some information on it.
Okay, quickly, you may remember this property as the old Brof's mobile home lot. And for many years, until 2016, until 2015, Brof's sold mobile homes here. They stored them. They even repaired them inside of a building that's now gone. But in 2016, the same applicant came before this body and received a conditional use permit for automobile sales. Now, at that time, the improvements planned I would characterize as minimal, but that expired earlier this year, that conditional use permit, because it was never acted upon. But currently, the same applicant is before you again with a much more extensive application that would include paving the front portion of the property, construction of a showroom that, if I remember correctly, is at a value of over $1 million, and would have repairs inside the building as well. Because it's really a redevelopment of the site, there's certain changes that'll need to be made, such as bringing back out of the front yard setback that paved area, so that will look a little bit different than previously. So this is the rear 2/3 of the property would still be recreational vehicle storage under a separate use and a separate operator, would not be subject to this conditional use permit. The conditional use permit standards, which you have before you in your packet, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the county staff recommend that this proposed use would conform to those conditions for a couple reasons. First, there's already a number of automobile dealerships along this stretch. It's kind of automobile row, if you if you might. Also, this use is less intensive than the last land use, so it's not going to really introduce new land use impacts such as lights and noise and et cetera. And in fact, it probably should be better in that we now have lighting standards that we didn't have when the Brofs was originally developed. So with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval with certain conditions that you have before you drafted in your the bill that's in front of you. I don't know if the applicant is here tonight, but Punul Raj Clement, if you're here, I wanted to give him an opportunity.
Does anybody have any questions of Robert this time? Hearing none, is the applicant here? I believe there's a gentleman that
I have
may...
two speakers. On
Two
this.
speakers? Okay.
Yes. Lonnie Haney.
You can come forward, please.
And I'll have to swear you in, sir.
Okay,
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes. I own the property right in behind. I was here when they were discussing it before. And my main concern, he's going to put up a building. There was a building there before. And if he's going to put $1 million building up, he's going to pave it. On the downhill side of him, and if he puts all that in, I want to make sure in your plans there that there is for water drainage. I've dealt with this water drainage for years, and Brof's supposed to do something about it. Never got done to where I wasn't having water run on my property from that property. I mean, it's like a lake or water, so I don't know what the plans are or what, but water runoff is the main concern I got. And as far as the lighting and everything, that sign up there that Brof's got, the big one, when it gets lit up, it lights up my backyard pretty much like daylight in the wintertime when the leaves are off. But my main concern is the water. So if you do let this go through, make sure that the water runoff is addressed, because you put a building and all that pavement up, I'm downhill. Water's gonna run downhill. And they supposedly got some kind of culvert set up for it, but water's gotta be directed to it, not to my property. That's all I got to say.
Is there currently a lot of drainage there right now that comes onto your property?
Yes. I got a ditch that's cutting through my driveway, and it's cut out roots and stuff from a tree. It's almost, I guess it's maybe 20 feet from the street of Clearview. So it goes all the way through my property, and it cuts out. The water's so much that it cuts a ditch.
Now,
So there's a lot of water drainage.
When it comes on your property, does it run which direction? To the east or to the west?
To the east. And, and then you got where we used to be, the Brof's nursery, which is one of the car lots now. When Brof's had it as a nursery, they paved it all. So everything's paved is coming down, and I'm getting washed down from that way. So everything from the service road and west of my property, that water pretty much all comes my direction. So it really needs a extensive drain, not just a little bit, because that's a lot of land area, so it generates a lot of water when it rains. So that's the only thing I'm concerned with.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker is Arnie Dienoff.
I am so sorry. Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, Arnie A.C. Dienoff, public advocate and resident. I testified at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting over a number of different automobile businesses in the last couple months. We need to really understand what conditional use permit really is. It's basically the right or the authority to do something that the code doesn't allow you to do. It puts special conditions and special regulations to ensure the property rights of owners of the adjoining property and to make a good community. We have zoning and requirements here. Otherwise, we might as well just throw out our code and look like Lincoln County, where you have a mobile home worth $10,000 next to a $450,000 home. But we require more here, and we want to have a classy county. We want to ensure property values. Not this owner in particular, but the last one that was on the agenda last month posed a number of different issues for the last 15 years. That place was deplorable. There were code violations upon code violations upon code violations. We need to make sure that we follow our county code to ensure that everybody is treated fairly, including adjoining property owners. The staff report and the conditions placed on this applicant are very limited in scope and don't address things that can be revoked by a conditional use permit by this council. As I said, the conditional use permit is revocable, and there needs to be conditions placed on there like no derelict vehicles, which means they must be licensed, they must not have broken windows, they must not be rusty or have flat tires. They must be operable in terms of the engine. A number of automobiles in unincorporated county, the municipalities have really cracked down, limit the number of outdoor vehicles on the lot while being repaired or in disrepair. We also need to put a condition that we're not going to have total out vehicles. I could see maybe you're waiting 30 or 60 days for the insurance company to make a payment for the total out vehicle, but it shouldn't be a storage place that's unsightly and goes against our code. And as the last gentleman spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission, there were questions about proper landscaping, proper buffer and setback, a lighting plan that hasn't been given by the applicant. And there's some residences that are in the back of this property and along the side of the property to the west. Also is the water issue. At the very back of the property is a retention area, but this area, because of the topographical slope, I think that there needs to be additional requirements for runoff and capturing of the water when it rains. But we really need to put some requirements and conditions that they don't have barrels that are on the property. As I said, we have our code, but unfortunately our code enforcement isn't following it. They're not doing inspections properly, and this is the time to do it, to place the conditions on the applicant. So I said the county council go above what staff has recommended and put these conditions, so if there is a problem, or if it does become a junkyard like the last applicant last month, where it took 15 years to clean up the property, that you have a revocable reason to have the county councilor revoke, or the county register revoke that business license. Thank you.
That was the
That
last
are all the
speaker.
ones I have on 4607.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4608.
Bill number 4608, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-06A for automobile, boat, truck, trailer, and recreational vehicle storage to the Gerald A. Keevan Revocable Trust dated February 24, 2000, and the Glennon J. Keevan Revocable Trust dated February 24, 2000, property owners, and Gerald A. Keevan applicant.
Well, Robert, you're still sworn in, so would you give us a little update on this?
Certainly. These are technically two different conditional use permits, one for a recreational vehicle storage lot and second for a single-family residence in commercial zoning district. The property is already zoned commercial. It's on Highway D, just east of DD. It's on north side of Highway D, a little less than 5 acres. It does have a single-family residence on the site, but the applicant, Mr. Keevan, is proposing to have a storage lot for recreational vehicles, automobiles, boats, trucks, and trailers, and has already installed a berm along the front. And the house would be used for a caretaker's residence. Now, I would note that view of the property would have to have buffering in terms of landscaping and or fencing under the county's code, and so those requirements will be followed. Also, the applicant is proposing a detention basin in the northeast corner of this property in order to address stormwater. The property does not have public sewer, and so the house, which has a septic tank, before any development under the site plan occurs, the septic field would need to be defined because we don't want parking of vehicles or driving over that septic drain field and damaging or destroying the septic system for the house. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this application at their May 16th meeting, and following review and the public hearing, they recommended 9 in favor and 0 in denial. In terms of the conditional use permit requirements for the RV storage, given the berms and required landscaping, buffering, and fencing, and the fact that it doesn't have sanitary sewer service to this property, this use can be acceptable and not introduce land use conflicts in a way that would negatively affect the property surrounding it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Anybody have any questions? I just have one comment. As a part of this conditional use permit, and since there is a residence there, would that also require an inspection of that septic tank and field to make sure it's in compliance?
One of the
I don't know, did the Kevens, typically that's done when the property transfers ownership under county regulations.
I'm not certain under the building code, but I would say one of the proposed conditions that you have in this bill is that a septic system inspection must be completed and submitted to St. Charles County Building Division prior
Okay.
to approval of the site plan.
Good, thank you.
We talked about this for quite a while at Planning and Zoning, and I believe that Mr. Keevan has expressed his desire to make it as protected and landscaped in the best way. I think we had quite a discussion about what type of trees that needed to be planted there, and I think we've come to a good plan, and Mr. Keevan was more than willing to accommodate the selection of trees even. So I think it'll be a good project.
Thank you, Mr. Klinghammer. Is the applicant here? Would he like to come forward at this point?
And I would need to swear you in, sir. Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi, I'm Jerry Keevan, and yes, I am trying to get a conditional use permit for our boat and RV storage. As far as, there's a lot of things going on the county. One of the things that always hits me, the median income is above 80,000. These are the people that need to, or not need, but these are the people that do buy boats and RVs, and they do need a spot. As far as everybody knows, that they can't be put in subdivisions anymore. The one that you guys approved for me last year and the year before, it was phase 1 and phase 2 of the Highway Z property. As of right now, that particular one was a larger facility than what this one will be. And we had 264 spaces. As of right now, we have 7 left. So it has extremely filled up. I guess as the economy is going good and strong, people are still buying and wanting to have spots. So feel good about being able to serve all the citizens in that way. One of the things that I would, if I could go back on a little bit of history, on the Highway Z property, we were able to get rid of a dilapidated house that was on it. We were able to get rid of a dilapidated mobile home that was on it that had a chicken coop attached to the mobile home. We also cleaned up, it was a 1956 house that was just a 1-bedroom house. We have new gutters on it, new sod in the back, and the tenants are extremely proud. to be there. It's a very nice, small house that we have currently rented out. As far as the other thing on that property that I think is pretty significant, and if I could, do I put the street down?
Face up.
Yeah, face up.
Mr. Keevan, turn it 90 degrees. Nope. One more turn. There you go.
We're going to look at this particular piece right here. As far as in 2016, my taxes on that particular property were $1,025. 2017, it went up $8,400. I don't mind paying that, and I can tell you that the police department loves to get the extra money. The school district loves to get the money. St. Francis Howell School District was voted down on a particular tax increase. Fire department, my dad always told me years ago, he said, you know what, son? He said, $10,000 is not a lot of money. However, if you don't have it and you owe it, it's a whole lot of money. So $8,400 to the people that need it in the county, I think is, they're very fortunate to be able to have that. I assume that this one won't go up quite as much, but I would assume that this one would go up relatively the same per acre, if you will. As far as, let me see here once, I don't know how good this is going to show up. The area that we're in, this is Highway D and Double D, the intersection. This one here is Highway Double D, and then D is here. My property is over in this area. Most all the homes that are in that area, as you can see, the ones that were on my particular property were 1950. Another one was 1950. The home that I'm trying to resurrect and stay was built in 1953, along with the one on the side of it. And the one along the side of that was 1960. On this particular property, along with just like the Highway Z property, we have already taken down 2 homes that were dilapidated. That one was rented out, and I felt like it just needs to come down. Just cost too much to try to put back together. We also took out 4 buildings already. I am wanting to make the county look good, and I hope that I am doing that, and I would hope that I would have your approval tonight on helping myself make this particular look good also. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but we're going to try it again. Sorry, can't really see this very good. This is one of the mounds that we put up. I'm parked in the fire station at this particular time, and this is one of the mounds of trees I have that are on 9-foot centers to try to get the buffering. One of the things that I did this particular time that was a little bit different than the ones in the past, I thought that this would be a little bit of a tougher sell out in this area. So I thought, you know what, let's get go through the county and get a land use permit so that I could put up the berms, put the trees in, start them growing, which they are, and I think they look fantastic. I don't know if anybody's been out there. Those are starting to already grow and starting to expand. So that is one of the things I wanted to go over. As far as the next thing is, okay, like I said, I took down 6 different buildings, 2 of them being houses. The feedback that I'm getting on this particular property, people are excited. They're calling me and saying, hey, I know you're going to build a storage facility, which they don't. I always tell them I don't have that completed yet, so don't get too much in front of me. But at the same time, they're excited. They want to put their units in there. Some of them that are already with me have expressed that, you know what, that one's a lot closer. I'd love to get in that one as soon as you possibly could. So I have nothing but 100% good feedback from the people. On the planning and zoning that was held May 16th, one of the neighbors, Mr. Hoffmeyer, that was behind me, he had some concerns of where the water would go. Would I be getting mud on his particular property? What kind of screening that I would have? and what kind of commercial vehicles would be parked into the storage facility. As far as, and I actually went over there 2 days later, I met with he and his wife. And as far as we talked about where the water would go, I had a whole plan. He wanted to see a good plan, so I brought that over to him. The plan would be going into a retention pond. As far as the mulch berms that the county makes you put up are fantastic. They do an excellent job of keeping any siltation of soil going off of the property. As far as on his particular property, we discussed what kind of trees that he would want. We talked about dogwoods and redbuds would be the natural look from his particular area. And we've come to that agreement that I'll be planting dogwoods and redbuds. And I said, if you want something different, obviously let me know. I'll be more than happy to make sure that works for him.
Jerry, is that part of is that in the plan, the condition, what you putting a berm on the backside of the property, is that in here, or is that just an agreement you have with him?
That is not, that is agreement that I have with Mr. Hoffmeyer and his wife Nina.
Do we need Robert, do we need to solidify that, just to have it in part, if he agreed to do it, should we put that in the conditions?
You can, if you want to, yes.
I mean, I don't,
I will say it will be on record right now. If
Well,
that makes a difference.
I know you do a good job, I just.
Will it be on the
Keith,
final
you-
site plan? If that's all
Keith,
right.
I was gonna say, Keith, you can advise me later if you think it should be, and then let us know.
I think Mike hit the nail on the head, either the site plan or put it in as a condition, one or the other, sort of locks.
Is it on a site plan though, Jerry?
It is not on the site plan, however, she does not want a berm.
Okay, because that was one, they called me, you know that, and so.
Right.
And I told you to work it out with him, and so.
Right.
So can we just get it, whatever you're gonna do, let's make sure that you're gonna do it, and so if Robert could add it to the conditions or the plot plan or whatever.
Be redwoods and dogwoods, or redbuds and dogwoods.
Yeah.
Jerry,
Well, just be a little more specific when you, Jerry, just email it over to him, and just so we can add something, like 10-foot center, whatever you guys agreed to.
Sure.
Okay?
you and Gary Griffin went back and forth about a particular kind of tree.
He's my next thing I'll talk about. So we came to an agreement. They do not want a berm, I can tell you that. Nina was extremely specific. Are you sure it would do a lot better? Absolutely, I do not want a berm. So I'm going to give her what she wants. But as far as the next one was at the Planning and Zoning, Gary Griffin also talked about some trees that he would like to see up front. Invited me over to his house. Norwood spruce are the trees that he was talking about. I went over to his house the same day. Great looking trees, fantastic, and he showed. So I agree. I'll incorporate those also into the landscape part up front.
Is that also, again, is that on the site plan or in the?
Nope.
So
Nope.
we should really put that in there.
Gary told me, he said, Jerry, I don't need it on the site plan, but he said, I can tell you, if you tell me it's gonna be there, I'm totally all right with that. If you want it on the site plan, I will put it on the site plan for you.
The only reason I know you'll do it, but if I say that to you and then the next guy comes up and I don't say the same thing,
Yep,
I gotta be
yep, yep.
consistent, we gotta be
I-
consistent, you
I get
know?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Robert, just make sure that the language that Gary Griffin, just so it's all covered, because we gotta treat everybody the same.
Sure. No, totally understand where you're coming from. By the way, he's got an extremely nice place out there.
I'm sure he showed you everything, too.
He did. It is a dandy, no
Well,
question about it.
Post-Dispatch liked it so much, they put it on the front page there, so.
Yes, that is correct. And Mr. Klinghammer, you talked about the dust as far as if we've ever had any dust complaints, and we have not had one dust complaint. Our extra ace in the hole, if you will, is putting on calcium chloride, spraying that on. I've never had to do that because I've never gotten a complaint, but if I would ever get a complaint, that is what I would do. One of the big things why we don't get dust is because people are traveling at a very slow rate of speed. They're only 300 feet. On gravel, people don't want to see how fast they can get up to when they're pulling a trailer. So they're just going so slow. The gravel's not breaking down and getting into a dust form like if you would on a road, and that there's dust everywhere. Other than that, guys, that's all I have. I don't know if you'd have any questions for me.
No,
I do have, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're
I-
fine,
I do
Jerry.
have a bigger
Great.
plan in case you wanted to see that also.
It'll come in our packet next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
In all fairness to Mr. Keevan, though, with his new procedure, I don't know if we're gonna get him approved the next meeting. Okay, we get approval, but the conditional, the findings of facts and conclusions of laws and all that, just so you know, it delays the process some, and that gentleman right there will probably tell you that, okay? So I thought, in all fairness to you, you might wanna talk to Robert and them to see how long this is gonna take. I was under the impression we could get it done with a couple of meetings. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Well, Keith, we did talk about on these simple CUPs, they should be able to have final facts at the next meeting. We got a 3-week, don't we have 3 weeks?
No, it's 2 weeks from now to June 25th.
Is that-
And we got to make sure Jerry signs the stipulation, so we probably need some time for that. I really think we'd be setting ourselves up to disappoint if we talk in terms of having it on for June 25th. It's safer to think in terms of that July the 9th meeting. I'd offer that. I mean, Joe, I'm sorry, but by the time we look at those videos, read the minutes, and all that sort of thing, it's just a time-consuming process.
So so you understand it's probably going to be,
I don't, to be quite honest with you, I don't understand the whole process.
Right.
However, the more that we can push something through, and let me tell you why I would want to push it through. Because the last 2 times that we were doing this, we were up against deadlines for getting anything seeded. Now, our berms are already with grass and so on, so that should help a lot. But in the past, I was with the county is trying to say, you can't quite go yet, wait a little bit. And I'm like, I'm going to miss my window for seeding and getting all of this done in the sodding. And all of a sudden, if I wouldn't have tried to push and push and push and push and push some more, it would have been too late. All my seed would have been not coming up. It would have froze out. And I would have been like, now the county's going to be on my tail again.
I can offer this to you. First of all, there's a document called a stipulation that needs to be reviewed by you with our office. And that, if we can get that signed in the next 24 to 48 hours, that'll help.
We will.
I think that we can try very hard to have something done, but you'd be well advised to call that Thursday, June the 21st, and see how well we've done. I want you to know.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
Jerry,
You
were
can
you,
only do so much, and I understand that.
Jerry, were you asked if you wanted to waive the process, this hearing process?
That's not
I don't
the
wanna
step
get anybody
that
in
gets
trouble.
That opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know.
That step is after this meeting tonight. And I'll do one better than Keith. We did meet last week with the county counselor's office and community development, and we've initiated a few other steps of notification to the applicants, where we will send a notice through to Donna to the applicant on Friday of this week to let them know whether or not the findings of fact and conclusions of law will be available for you all to vote on at the next meeting or not. So you won't have to call, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Well, you guys know we talk about this and I know we're gonna work through it, but the fact that we're holding up businessmen on simple rezonings is not fair to them, because their money is sitting out there costing them money, and we gotta keep these things rolling, so we'll talk about it, but we gotta keep these findings of facts moving.
Basically, from the time you've done ones before, the process has changed some. There's some additional steps involved. So instead of getting it approved at the end of June, it may be July 9th. So,
Okay.
I mean, unless something changes. And we ran into that for that gentleman last week, and I just wanted you to be aware of that as well.
Gotcha.
Okay.
No, I understand. You can only do what you can. If you can, great. If you can't, well, then I understand.
Yeah. So anyhow, I would, why don't you plan to be in touch with the county counselor's office tomorrow, and we'll try to get that stipulation taken care of, and
Okay,
that'll get us going on the findings of fact. So.
sure.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments on this?
Arnie Danoff,
Excuse me, Arnie, that's okay. I brought a lot of stuff up here.
Hey, you just like me. Perfect. Thank you. Do I need? Okay, thank you. Thank you, members of the County Council. Mr. Chairman, Arnie A.C. Deanoff, Public Advocate and resident. I also attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I know that the adjoining residents and Mr. Keevan came to some type of agreement, but I have not seen it on paper, and I think that the county needs to be protected as, 190 spaces at this facility. Subdivision covenants and restrictions are pushing out boats, jet skis, and trailers into these type of facilities. Mr. Keevan is an honorable man. He's a word. He follows his word and is responsible and dignified, follows through with what he says he's going to do. But my only concern is, like the previous tenant at the property, is unlicensed vehicles. And what about somebody after Mr. Keevan? But eventually this is going to go residential, probably in 5 or 10 years. Mr. Keevan agreed at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting not to accept his tenants' commercial trucks or semis. He's agreed to that at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. There were 4 conditions that were placed by staff, which really doesn't talk about what a conditional use permit is. Basically, a conditional use permit is permission to do something that the code doesn't allow you to do to protect the county and to protect adjoining property owners. The 4 conditions that staff has recommended are: 1, a site plan. Well, that has not been met, and that's not correct. There needs to be a firm site plan submitted to the county council before approval, and unfortunately, that has not been accomplished, and that was also verified at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and still to this day has not been accomplished. Number 2, a septic system inspection. I'm not so sure that that's been inspected by Mr. Myers' other division in community development, but that also needs to take place. The 3rd condition is no use unless the above 2 conditions are met. So those 2 conditions have not been met to my knowledge as of this date. Number 4 is a condition that it be revoked, the conditional use permit, if not used within 2 years. Now, going back to the previous tenant or property owner, I'm not sure which, I was kind of confused, but that tenant had a lot of junk, had a lot of debris, had numerous junk cars on the property that didn't move for years upon years. Mr. Keevan has cleaned that up and cleaned up the property with the derelict homes and the homes that were falling apart. And I applaud him for cleaning up that and cleaning up the neighborhood to ensure property values. But we need to go further than the 4 current conditions. And we need to add the following conditions to say that we are not going to allow any derelict or unlicensed vehicles, non-operating vehicles, no junked out vehicles, and no outside storage anywhere on the property. Also, one condition, if Mr. Keevan decides to sell the property, that it be non-transferable and that the new owner has to go through a conditional use permit, as traditionally, conditional use permits are not transferable to succeeding owners of the property. There are questions of landscaping, and as was brought up and discussed, was the Norwood spruce. They're a fast-growing tree. I'd like to see that be put in as a condition in one of the conditions. And as I said, this property or this use will only be here for 5 to 10 years, as I'm almost certain Mr. Keevan will sell it for a residential subdivision development. So there needs to be a site-proof fence. That still hasn't been addressed from the planning and zoning process. There needs to be a firm site plan that still has not been submitted, and those need to be done before granting a conditional use permit to ensure responsibility and guarantee that we're going to follow through and that our code is going to be followed. Basically, the county so far has put the cart before the horse, and I know you trust and believe in Mr. Keevan as I do, but what about the next property owner that isn't as responsible and isn't as a man of his word or a woman of their word that will follow through with what they say? What if we turn into a junkyard or we turn into a derelict type situation? The county needs to start protecting all the 425,000 residents, and we need to build a first-class county here in St. Charles County. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
No, that's the last one on that one.
Any comments or questions from the council?
You don't need to.
You don't need to at this point, I don't think.
You're a well-respected man of the county.
Mr. Chairman, could I mention to Jerry, rather than calling the county counselor's office, I've just told you it'd be better off calling the Department of Community Development about this stipulation, so get hold of probably Robert, right?
Okay. Moving on to Bill number 4609.
Bill number 4609, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-06B for a single-family residence to the Gerald A. Keevan Revocable Trust dated February 24, 2000, and the Glennon J. Keevan Revocable Trust dated February 24, 2000, property owners, and Gerald A. Keevan applicant.
So basically, this is the same property and that we were talking about, and I think we've already hit on that, but why don't you go ahead, Mr. Myers, if you have anything additional?
Sure, this is a separate conditional use permit for the residents, and I'd like to incorporate, if I could, the comments that I made under bill number 4608 into this hearing. And the only thing I would add is that in terms of the conditional use permit criteria, use as a residence, one, there's already existing residents there, so it's not going to be introducing any new land use conflicts that really. And also, it's a less intensive use than commercial, so it's not going to really have a detrimental effect on the commercial uses around it. So I would just add those two things in terms of the conditional use permit criteria.
Okay. Mr. Keevan, did you want to add any additional things? I think you probably already covered it, but
There is one more thing, and the reason why I'm asking for that, I don't know that I would, the house isn't in great shape either, but at the same time, it is habitable. It is the same gentleman that was living there. When I bought the property from he and 3 siblings and some other children of one of the siblings, I would ask that this be passed also. He needs help, and we are renting the particular piece of property very cheaply to him for that reason.
okay.
And he'll be able to do the mowing in the front is what I presume.
Anybody on the council have any questions? Thank you very much. Do we have any speakers on this?
The only speaker, Arnie Dinoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Arnie A.C. Dinoff, public advocate and resident. I would like the same with me, that my previous comments stand for this conditional use permit. However, I feel that we need to follow our strict adherence to our code to ensure public safety, health, and welfare. And I think we need to make sure that the young lady in community development that's in charge of septic tank inspections, who is quite familiar with the code, and make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, that she go out and inspect the property. We don't want to have any health concerns or health issues. And I ask that we put a condition that septic system inspection be completed before the next council meeting, and that we strictly adhere to our codes for the compliance of the public health, welfare, and safety of this home. Thank you.
I think that was already mentioned. Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, let's move on to conditional use permits, table bills, bill number 4596. And this is where I'll need a motion to remove it from the table in a second.
Make a motion, we remove 4596 from the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please read Bill 4596.
Bill number 4596, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-02 for automobile sales to James O'Donnell, property owner, and Fast and Friendly Car and Truck Sales LLC, in care of Patrick E. Engel Jr., lessee of the property, hereinafter applicants.
Okay. I believe there's a replacement bill for this, or
There's
amended
just the
bill?
fact that your findings of fact are now complete, and they were in the packet in a timely fashion on Friday.
It says on the,
Okay.
Exhibit C has been received and included in the packet.
Okay.
Make a motion to, do you make a motion to receive them? No.
Okay, I guess we're ready to vote on it.
Okay, bill number 4596, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-02 for automobile sales to James O'Donnell, property owner, and Fast and Friendly Car and Truck Sales LLC, in care of Patrick E. Engel Jr., lessee of the property, hereinafter applicants. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes,
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
that bill passes.
Have we done everything correctly so this man can be fast and friendly, okay, and get to his work, okay?
It's actually fair and friendly.
Fair and friendly, okay.
We
Well,
can be fast, too.
I don't know if we were fair and friendly to you or not, but we sure appreciate your patience on this.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we remove tabled bill 4598 from the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please read the bill.
Bill number 4598, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-03B for a restaurant to Chandler Hill Holdings LLC, property owner.
Let the record show that Exhibit C has been received and is included in the packet. I guess we're ready to vote.
Okay, bill number 4598, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-03B for a restaurant to Chandler Hill Holdings LLC, property owner. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes,
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
that bill passes. Moving on to table bill 4599.
Make a motion that we remove tabled bill 4599 from the table.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bill
Okay.
number 4599, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-03C for buildings, structures, or open spaces for conducting weddings and/or wedding receptions or other private parties to Chandler Hill Holdings LLC, property owner.
I'd also like to mention that Exhibit C has been received, and we're ready to vote.
An ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 18-03C for building, structures, or open spaces for conducting weddings and/or wedding receptions or other private parties to Chandler Hill Holdings LLC, property owner. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes,
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
and that bill passes. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any speakers tonight?
Yes, we do. The first speaker we have is Charles Laponic.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Charles Lapanic, and I live on 101 Bourne Avenue in the Carmelwood subdivision. And I want to find out what is happening with the code violation that's been coming down hard on our area. One thing I am concerned about is about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a meeting with our county councilor, district manager at that time, and we got voted in, or they said that we could have up to 3 trailers parked on your lot, okay? And that goes into a couple of stories now. Now, if you own a lot out there, they're saying you can't have nothing on it. Why have a lot out there in that subdivision if you're not allowed to park nothing on it, okay? And the second thing is the used lots that we lease back from the county. That's another thing. We can't do nothing with them lots that we lease back from the county, but yet we lease it back so we can keep our yards and everything looking good, looking clean, cutting the grass and all that, but yet you can't do nothing with them. We pay taxes, but we don't have no water service. We don't have no sewer, but our taxes are up there. And my thing is why can't we at least have a little more lenient on the trailers, parking our trailers, boat trailers and everything like that. We live right next to the river, so and during the flood, you need boat trailers. You need one to get from where you live on the river to the railroad track, one on the other side of the river, get you to B and C, and then another one get you to your vehicle. So, and then you need trailers to move your equipment out, your household belongings, stuff like that. And they're coming down, they're saying you, and then if you had a private road that most of us have out there, we maintain that gravel road or everything like that, and we can't even park a trailer on that? Something's not right.
For the benefit of the rest of the council, this is an area along the Mississippi River, and we've been working with Code Enforcement Division to kind of come up with a sensible plan of how to address the code violations that are down there now. And ultimately, we all agree that there's a difference between a typical subdivision and people that have places down on the river. So we're going to have a group meeting. Mr. Lopinick has volunteered to organize that for us, and we're going to get everybody together and talk about really what we are trying to enforce and those issues that it's a way of life of living down on the river. So we're going to come up with a plan that makes sense for everybody. There are, and Mr. Lopinick will tell you, there are violations down there that do need to be addressed, and then there's others that we need to have a little bit more flexibility on how we go about enforcing them.
Mike, at one time we talked about, weren't you going to do a zoning for that? Like it's, agriculture, whatever, have a river district or something like that?
We had talked about that and we looked into that, and I was hesitant to go forward with that from, it seems like every time we touch the code, we have unintended consequences of rewriting it and changing one thing that it impacts something that's in a completely different area than or a unintended consequence of how it gets applied. So what we're going to try first is a riverfront plan down there that addresses the most egregious, the health and humane issues first, and see if we can't make that work without trying to come up with a whole different section of the code. It gets very unwieldy, and it's still ultimately, we need to work with our code enforcement personnel so that they know what the standards really are. And,
Well, it seems to me, just like what we did with agriculture, the rules can't be the same on farms and agriculture as they are in subdivisions, and we did modify it, so it seems to me it should be modified, but.
We have platted subdivisions down there. So that's where it gets a very tricky when you start talking about one set of codes for this platted subdivision, and then those, even though it's a platted subdivision that's not in the riverfront area, those same code changes could impact that as well. And that's the last thing we want to do is make the code more complicated.
We're still in public comment. Maybe we could continue this discussion later on when we get to miscellaneous.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Clayton Jones?
I just wanted to second what Mr. Lopinick. I live in the same subdivision. I understand that the code enforcement is hard to deal with, but what they're doing down there and what you do in, say, New Melly, Defiance, Augusta are two different things. I understand people need trailers, boats, but when somebody has 6 Sea-Doos on their property that hasn't moved in 5 years, something needs to be done about it. I was told that things were going to be taken care of by February by Connie. I understand she has a lot going on, but some people move the stuff out, and a week later, they just move it right back in. And then what's happening is it's attracting the wrong kind of people. I'm not better than anybody else by any means, but it's bringing a lot of drug activity, a lot of terrible people, which then attract other people. And I've been told that there's only one officer that runs from, I think, Portage to Old Monroe, and they're probably stretched thin, but we never see, I put in for extra police, patrol. When you have people walking around half naked in the middle of the day talking to rocks, it's a problem. It's funny. You think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. I got a 3-year-old, so I can't deal with it myself because it's against the law. So unfortunately, it's up to you folks to do something about it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other?
On the next item, a different item, we have Ray Schulte.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, my name is Raymond Schulte, and I live on 1726 Beverly Drive, St. Charles, Missouri, out here by the Convention Center. And last Monday, I had an opportunity to attend the Convention Center Oversight Committee meeting, and I appraised them of the parking problem that we have in our neighborhoods with all the overflow parking from the Convention Center. And they said that was the first time they ever heard there was a problem. We've had problems out there since day one, since we've been having overflow parking from large get-togethers, the Working Women's Convention Center, or their program. A few weeks ago, there was the Star Wars program. Just Saturday night, there was a big wedding reception going on up there, and the parking lot was full. Overflow parking on the streets. They're blocking driveways. They're blocking mailboxes. On Beverly Drive, Barbara Drive, Christine, South Drive, and Clearview. South Drive especially is a very narrow street. There's no curbs, there's no gutters. They park on each side. You can only get one car down through the street. If we ever had a fire in one of those homes, we'd never get a fire department in there or emergency equipment to take care of it. When I mentioned this to the Oversight Committee, they said, well, isn't that in the county? And I said, yes, it is. They said, well, that's a county problem. It's a county city problem. It's something that needs to be addressed, and I've talked to Mr. Elam a little bit before the meeting. He said maybe need to talk to the highway department people. Maybe we could get some signs put up, no convention center parking, because people coming home from work at night, they can't even park in front of their own homes. Maybe they have 2 or 3 cars. Sometimes there's too many of them. But then they have to go someplace else to park. So it's written to be a real problem, and there's some concern that the convention center wants to expand and possibly build a parking garage. Well, that's just going to exacerbate the problem that we have in the neighborhood. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, and hopefully that maybe working together we could get something taken care of to eliminate that problem. And I would invite Mr. White, since that's his district, to come out there more often and when they have some of these big to-dos and see some of our problems that we have in the neighborhood. It's getting to be a real problem and a safety problem with the small children that we got in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Another issue, Dennis Wiss.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Let's see if I can get this right tonight. Oh, they got it for me. I stand before you tonight as the chairman of the county's Veterans Best Practices Working Group. It's way too long of a name. We got to shorten it. But I want to remind everyone we have our second annual flag collection this Thursday from 9 to 3 on the corner of Monroe and 2nd. Myself and my other group members will be out there. Last year we collected over 1,300 flags. We already have 250, give or take, this year. I never expected to get 1,300 last year, so I'm hoping to break that record this year. If anyone has Old Glory, worn, damaged, no longer suitable for flying, bring it to us. We will take it to the AMVETS, and it will be properly disposed of at a flag retirement ceremony this year. So if you've got one in your basement, in your garage, trunk of your car, wherever, please bring it to us this Thursday. I would also note that not only are we doing this flag event on the street, but we also collect them through the year at the receptionist desk at the administration building. So year-round, if you've got a flag that you've taken down, you don't know what to do with it, bring it to the reception desk at the administration building. They'll get it to the veterans group, and we'll take care of it. And I certainly invite everyone in the room, council members as well, join us if you can. We want your flags. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next topic, we have Drew Weber.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Chairman. My name is Drew Weber, and I'm here on behalf of Ancob Construction, who is the applicant for a rezoning and preliminary plat that's dealt with in bills. Let me get the numbers right. I think it's 4610 and 4611. You have information on the bills, obviously, in your packets. Just briefly, this is a rezoning from R1B to R3A. To develop a 14-villa subdivision off of Bryan Road. It's a narrow strip of parcel that has, I think it's about 200 feet of frontage on Bryan Road, but then it's a long, deep parcel. And but what I want to talk to you about tonight is you also received a resolution from the city of O'Fallon opposing this rezoning. And so I sent you a letter about that, but I also want to expound upon that a little bit. And as I said in my letter, the history is that this property, which is 1112 Bryan Road, was previously combined with 1080 Bryan Road in a proposal to O'Fallon to rezone the property for the same type of development, just more homes, because it was two parcels, so it would have been a little bigger. And the 1080 Bryan Road is in O'Fallon. It's zoned C1 commercial, which is a light commercial district. And then the 1112 Bryan Road is in the county and is zoned R1B. So there was a proposal to annex and to rezone. The city staff recommended approval. The city planning and zoning commission recommended approval, but the city council denied. And so then after that, the city council de-annexed the property. And in addition, the applicant submitted a petition to withdraw the annexation. And then came before the county, but only with respect to 1112 Bryan Road. And again, 1112 Bryan Road is in unincorporated county. The annexation was never complete, and it's R1B right now. It was not and is not commercial. So I know there was some confusion with some of the speakers at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but the proposal now is not removing or changing the zoning of any commercial property. And in fact, the O'Fallon comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan call for this exact strip of property to be residentially zoned. But in O'Fallon's resolution, the city council said that this rezoning is inappropriate and ill-advised, which is surprising because that's contrary, again, to their own comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan. And again, the city and county staff and the city planning and zoning commission and the county planning and zoning commission all recommended approval. This property, I did the math, and about 70% of the boundaries borders residential property or golf course. The other 30% is split between Bryan Road and then a tiny portion of commercial on the north. So this is I guess that's my time, but this is a property that's well suited for residential development, and I ask that you approve, notwithstanding O'Fallon's objections.
And the last public comment speaker is Arnie Dienoff.
Thank you once again, members of the County Council. Mr. Chairman, Arnie A.C. Dienoff, Public Advocate and Resident. First on your agenda is Bill number 40, I believe it's 4603. It's amending Section 205.085, increasing the allowable number of chickens to be kept on residential properties. And so I applaud you for loosening the land restrictions and favoring property rights. It's a right decision in terms of governance, so you got this one right. Bill 4605, an agreement with the City of Wentzville for use of the Emergency Management Center here in St. Charles. I ask that you not charge the City of Wentzville because that would be taxing the same residents, and we're all trying to strive for public safety. Bill number 4613, again, the city of O'Fallon, involving a land issue. I ask that no fee be charged because we're talking about the same residents. Whether you're in a municipality, you also pay county taxes. And finally, bills number 4610 and 4611. Mr. Drew was correct, or Mr. Weber, I'm sorry, was correct. Chapter 405.535.B.3, the remonstrance and the resolution were officially passed opposing this rezoning by the O'Fallon City Council on May 24th in a 9-0 vote. That was filed the next day, or I believe Monday, with Brenda Hinton, the county register, up on the 5th floor. So you do have that remonstrance, which requires 5 out of 7 council members to approve. I'm opposed to this unincorporated portion. It was denied overwhelmingly by the Planning and Zoning Commission in O'Fallon, and it was denied by the City Council of O'Fallon. I testified at the Planning and Zoning Commission because of density. Putting 23 to 14 units on this tiny piece of property is just ludicrous. It doesn't serve anybody right, and the density issue is just way out of kilter. The future balance of this property is in question. The zoning setback and the buffers, along with water retention areas, are in question, both according to state statute, both the county code and the city code for buffering and setback requirements, because they abut each other, must be strictly followed. The comprehensive plan of the county, we need smart and responsible growth. Excuse me there. And it was opposed by the 2 developers of Turtle Creek, because they want a fence to prohibit trespassing on their golf course and any children having access to the ponds or lakes at the end of this small, tiny parcel where you want to cram anywhere from 14 to 23 homes or villas on this property. So everybody is very familiar and very understandable about this property. We all oppose it in O'Fallon. I ask that you join us as partners and that we build a good comprehensive plan countywide. I ask that you vote no on both the bills on your agenda. Thank you.
I can't wait to get to that bill.
That's
Any
all
other
we have.
speakers?
Nope, that's it for public comment.
Next, does the county executive have any comments tonight?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, bills for final passage. First bill is 4603.
Bill number 4603, an ordinance amending section 205.085 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, animal regulations to increase the allowable number of chickens to be kept on residentially zoned property.
Any comments or questions?
I'd just like to ask the council for a motion just to, on number 3, it says hens shall not be kept for commercial or resale purposes. Hens and eggs may not be sold. I'd like to scratch eggs because a lot of the FFA members will put, they sell fresh eggs. People do it all the time. So I don't know why we're restricting that. That might have been an oversight. I don't know why we would restrict that.
Well, does this really apply for ag property? It applies to...
Well, if they want to sell eggs, who cares? I mean, am I missing something, or is that a big deal? Because people do it all the time. They say fresh eggs for sale. You see it everywhere.
Is that a health
In the agriculture.
violation? We may want to ask the Director of Department of Health.
Could you please come forward, Hope? So we can all hear you.
I thought the purpose of the bill was for home consumption, for the family to raise their own food. It's not necessarily for commercial selling of food, because then we're looking at permits and those type of things.
Well, you have 8 chickens. If a chicken lays 1 egg a day, that's about it. You're going to have 8 eggs a day. So
Really big
you're going to end up with a lot of eggs. You see what I'm saying? And so if the kid
That's what
wants
the families wanted, though. That's why we made the amendment change.
But I don't know if we ever clarified that. That's all I'm saying. I don't remember. Did the other way it was, could they sell eggs?
No.
Because I don't see why we would restrict that. It just makes no, then you're going to end up throwing away eggs. I mean, it's just wasteful.
You can give them to your neighbor.
I guess you could give them to your neighbor too, but you're going to be giving a lot of eggs away. That's my motion. If you guys don't want to do it, that's fine, but I'd like to make a motion to scratch eggs in number 3.
Dave, I got a quick question. If you do want to, and I've seen the, and I partake of them, and I've never asked really, is there a permit process for if you're going to sell eggs on the side of the road? I mean,
Yes.
okay.
It would
So
be
you have to,
it would be the same thing as selling lemonade that's not prepackaged.
And how many permits do we give out for lemonade sales or egg sales?
Well,
Zero, maybe?
fresh lemonade we actually do, especially during festival time.
I hate that you guys aren't giving, don't tell me you're giving tickets to Girl Scouts for selling lemonade.
No, not that I know of.
But in all honesty, I took your Safe Serve class that your health department did years ago, and eggs are a very dangerous food in terms of salmonella, and that's
Right.
one of the things they really hammered home when I took that class. So if those things aren't stored correctly, that could be an issue too. So I mean, I think that since this bill applies to residential neighborhoods, I'm fine with it the way it is. Okay.
It's overreach. If the family wants to sell some eggs to their neighbors, they should be allowed to do it. It's buyer beware.
That's what I think. Anyway, that's my motion. Is there a second? John, you give me a second on the motion?
Yes.
All right. Dave? All those in,
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
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 Well,
Why don't you, why don't you give us a roll call
A
vote?
roll call vote, and this would be to approve the
Amendment?
amendment of striking and eggs
What is,
out of C3. Councilmember Cronin?
No.
Councilmember Brazel?
yes.
Councilmember Elam?
No.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
No.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
That,
All right, fine.
that fails.
You're not permitting it.
Do I have any other comments or questions?
No, let's just get it over with.
Please read it. Call the
Bill
roll.
number 4603, an ordinance amending section 205.085 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, Animal Regulations, to increase the allowable number of chickens to be kept on residentially zoned property. Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
That bill passes. Next bill is 4604.
Bill number 4604, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri Department of Economic Development, Division of Workforce Development, and the St. Charles County Department of Workforce and Business Development related to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Project Year 18 Annual Agreement.
Do I have any comments or questions on this bill? Hearing none, please read and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Missouri Department of Economic Development, Division of Workforce Development, and the St. Charles County Department of Workforce and Business Development related to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Project Year 18 Annual Agreement. Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes. That bill passes. Moving on to 4605.
Bill number 4605, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Wentzville, Missouri, relating to use of the County Emergency Operations Center at 301 North 2nd Street, St. Charles, for dispatch and 911 services during the city's project to make modifications and improvements to its dispatch and 911 services area located within its police department.
Any questions? Hearing none, please
And-
read and call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Wentzville, Missouri relating to use of the County Emergency Operations Center at 301 North 2nd Street, St. Charles, for dispatch and 911 services during the city's project to make modifications and improvements to its dispatch and 911 services area located within its police department. Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes,
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
that bill passes. Next, move to Bill 4606.
Bill number 4606, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for a multi-jurisdictional response to improvised explosive devices.
Any questions on this one, comments? Hearing none?
An ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for a multi-jurisdictional response to improvised explosive devices. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
That bill passes. Now we'll move on to bills for introduction, starting with Bill 4610.
Bill number 4610, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1B, single-family residential district, 20,000 square foot minimum lot size, to R3A, medium-density residential district, as per application RZ 18-06.
Any comments on this bill? I have a comment. Since this is right behind my house, I am very disappointed that the city of O'Fallon wishes to make this commercial property. I've had a conversation with all my neighbors about it, and the last thing we want is commercial property behind our subdivision. There are 8 houses on our street. They're all 3/4 of an acre. And I thought when this went before the city of O'Fallon, I thought it was a no-brainer that they were going to pass this and allow these homes to go in there, because it is a very narrow, long strip of property. There's not a lot you could do with it. But the last thing I think the neighbors want there is commercial. So I'm in favor of this bill. And I plan, after this bill is done, and to have a meeting with the city of O'Fallon about what their plans are.
Okay, then.
No other questions? We'll move on to Bill 4611.
Bill number 4611, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance of the County of St. Charles, Missouri, approving the preliminary plat of Shadow Pines.
And I believe this was, this also went before planning and zoning, and what was the vote on that? Was it unanimous to approve?
It was. As you probably know, preliminary plats rarely come before you, but this is before you because they're asking for a variance, and that is because they don't technically have 300-foot distance to the nearest street to the south. They have a little bit less than that, but I've spoken to the engineers in the Development Review Division, and they believe that the location that they're proposing in this case is the exact right spot where they should put a street if this property should be developed. So Development Review Division is recommending in favor of this variance request.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Bill 4612.
Bill number 4612, requested by Joe Brazel, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending sections 405.060, 405.080.c, 405.135.b, and 405.410 of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSUCMO, the Unified Development Ordinance, to add a new category of land use for a brew house as a conditional use in agricultural zoning district and permissive use in commercial and industrial zoning districts.
Any comments or questions on the bill? Yes.
I just have a suggestion for Mr. Brazel, because this is probably mostly going to occur in his district. A lot of the brew houses, I've been known to actually go to a few of those, okay? They take the spent grain after they're making the beer, and they also, a lot of them distill it, okay? That's real common in a lot of the ones in St. Louis. So you might want to either check with community development or modify your bill to, I don't think most people care if it's a 40-acre tract of ground, if they're making beer anyway, if they put a little still in the corner. I don't have a problem with that, but that's up to Mr. Brazel.
I believe they can have a still. Yeah, you can have a still.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Any other comments or questions on that bill? Hearing none, move on to Bill 4613.
Bill number 4613, requested by Craig Tykowski, sponsored by council as a whole, an ordinance approving an agreement with the city of O'Fallon to convey right-of-way of Deer Creek Drive / Elaine Drive.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, move on to 4614.
Bill number 4614, requested by Hope Woodson, sponsored by Dave Hammond, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute a memorandum of understanding in conjunction with the core public health functions contract for fiscal year 2018 with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services for services to residents of St. Charles County and receipt of funds across fiscal years 2018 through 2021.
Do we have any comments or questions on this bill? Hearing none, let's move on to Bill 4515.
Bill number 4615, requested by Bob Schnur, sponsored by council as a whole, an ordinance amending the 2018 budget adopted as ordinance 17-113 by establishing funding and appropriation for dental insurance claims in the self-insurance fund budget.
Any comments or questions? Yes.
Bob, could you, I mean, you don't have to do it tonight, but if you could provide us just what went into the decision to go to a self-funded program versus the system that we have been using. And,
Yeah,
I
be
know
happy to do
there's-
that.
There's more to it than what's been elaborated here, but I'd like to kind of know what went into the philosophy behind.
Short answer was we were leaving money on the table. I can provide you some of that information. It's a good move for us, I think, and Ed Noonan, our risk manager and administration, all believe it's a good time to do it.
If you could, just give us a little bit more details about what went into that decision process.
Sure.
Before the next meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to table bills. Are there any table bills to be removed?
Let's see, is there? Let's see.
No. Announcements and miscellaneous.
Oh, yeah, on the, no bills, the announcements on the Bluff subdivision. We are given our notice that it will be brought up at the next council meeting. They did make some revisions, and hopefully the council will like the changes they made.
So we are going to vote on the next meeting?
That's what the developer is asking us to do, yeah. So he's going to send out he's going to give it to community development, have them review everything and put the proper, what they just went over with us, what they're agreeing to do, and then it will go out to you guys. So yes, the intention is to vote on it at the next meeting. So this is our notice that we said we would give them, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had come up with another plan.
It's quite different, and it's
Okay.
it's very, very different, and the people who are concerned about the trees and the Katy Trail should be extremely happy, I would think.
I was privy to that meeting too, and it is substantially better than the other plan, and I'd like to take it a step further. I think community development ought to get that to some of the cities that objected, like Weldon Springs, Weldon Spring Heights, because it's significantly better plan. Less homes, more green space, a lot of thought went into it and a lot of care. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it, and I think I think some of the cities that border this area ought to be given the opportunity to take a look at it as well.
Looking forward to it. Nothing else? I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
How about a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.